It's Monday, January 26, 2026. It is cold as hell across most of the nation, but that's not going to stop us from doing another podcast. So that means it's time for the Knee Jerks podcast of Eno, Nick, and Big Al. I'm the Big Al of the equation, Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster. Joining me as always is, first off, is our West Coast correspondent who is now a Seahawks fan because, well, they look like the best team in football right now. We're now going to the Super Bowl. That would be Nick Milanovich. How's things, Nick?
Hey, they're going pretty well. And yes, I think this year more than ever, it's kind of converting me to believe in the Seahawks. I've been here for 20 years. This is their fourth trip to the Super Bowl. So I got to admit, it's much better than what I've seen with the Lions since the 80s. So I'm going to enjoy it.
Big year for Seattle sports, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, it's not a sports crazy town like the East, but their football team is a hell of a team. So.
Yes, and that other voice you heard, of course, is my longtime partner in crime, and that would be Mr. Substack himself, Greg Eno, who had a column today that's pertinent to what we're going to be talking about later. How's things, Greg?
Things are well, Al. Thank you for the little introduction there. I'm Greg Eno from my Out of Bounds Substack. GregEno.substack.com is where you can find me. Please subscribe. I will be in your inbox every Monday if you do. Today's piece was about J.B. Bickerstaff and how I think he's trending to be Coach of the Year. But it's more than just that. It's about the Pistons and in general kind of establishing themselves. I've written a number of pieces on the Pistons since the season started. It's hard not to with the season that they're having. So please check that out, gregeno.substack.com. Follow me on X at Greg Eno. Follow the Knee Jerks on X at the Knee Jerks. We were going to have Coach Ray Scott, our good friend Coach Ray Scott, on tonight, but we had some technical issues. So
actually, Greg, he's on the stage right now. We can try one more time.
Okay, let's try one more time then.
All right, let's see if you can hear us now.
For Gregory, I'm for JP.
Here he is.
Applause.
You just wanted to have a dramatic dramatic entrance. There is Coach Ray Scott. Technical issues aside,
I've also had the dramatic exit.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Speaking of dramatic exits, because I don't know. If you caught this before. We tried, in all transparency, this is the second time we're trying this podcast tonight. The first time we tried it, I'm not sure if you heard this, Coach. It was 50 years ago today that you were let go by the Pistons. Are you aware of that?
I tried not to hear that. Yeah, that was actually I just covered that. Jennifer and I have been married 45 years, and that's one of the things when we do our morning coffee recollections. That's one of the stories I will regale her with, detail by detail. But I was a young kid. I was 34 years old, and it was a strange time, but it was the best of times because it was that whole repatriation for me back into the NBA. And so it was, and Greg, we've talked about this, and I know you and I, or Big Al, we've talked about it too. How feel, because people are so curious as to how we could be treated so specially and then cheered by 11,000 fans and then have the experience of being let go. Those cheers become silent because you're walking down the street or you're shopping at the supermarket or you're going to the cleaners or you're getting your car washed and you're just John Q. Citizen. Yep. So
Yeah.
something. But I think when you're young and you really get into living your life, you see that there's so much more to life than just those experiences. Those are very uncommon experiences.
Before I don't want to get too far into this discussion before we introduce the other member of our or the other guest we have tonight. Another good friend of
Oh,
yours.
I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Siddy Hall is here. Siddy is our resident NBA stats guru. He and I have known each other since 1968. Good friend of mine, a personal friend of mine, and probably my longest known friend, and probably one of my few friends that I still have.
My condolences, Siddy.
Well, way back in the day, Greg was known as the funny guy.
I
In
was.
kindergarten.
Are you a
he
funny
got
guy?
that nickname. That's right. We gave him the nickname at age 5
I was.
as the funny guy.
I was the funny guy. But anyway, so Siddy's here. We're going to be talking Pistons, obviously, tonight with these two gentlemen on the show. But before we get to that, we're going to play a little game that we like to call, Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro? Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I give Al and Nick a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if one of those gentlemen can correctly guess this person within the first two clues, in light of, in honor of today's topic, they will receive a box set of The White Shadow. Box set.
Oh, that was a good series.
I thought it was a good series.
Yeah, Ken Howard as the White
Ken
Shadow
Howard.
himself. Yes.
Absolutely, Ken Howard.
And he coached like salami, and I can't remember the rest of them.
Washington. And,
Yeah, Washington, salami, and I can't remember any other names.
Right,
Coolidge.
and-
Coolidge, there we the tall guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because he ended up on St. Elsewhere. I think it's
he ended up on St. Elsewhere. I think it's the. Oh goddamn!
I thought we had the feedback.
I think we have the feedback back from
I don't
Coach.
think we have it now.
No, it's
I don't
okay.
think we have it.
No, I muted him.
No, I muted him.
No.
Oh,
Back.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, but he can go for about 5 minutes, and then somehow the feedback kicks in.
Ah, interesting.
So
And
I
the
hate
camera
that.
goes
No,
off.
yeah, exactly. It's like a timer or something. I don't know what exactly, but I don't know what to do.
Okay. Well, let's get through this jerk of the week. Or not jerk of the week. I'm all flustered now. Whose birthday is it? This person made his name in the world of baseball.
Yeah.
He was born in this date in 1934. Sadly, he passed away just last year, at the age of 90. Not a great player by any stretch of the imagination, but a very, very well-known broadcaster.
Bob Uecker?
Bob Uecker. Bob
Yeah.
Uecker. Yep. Ueck.
Yes.
Died about a year ago last.
Must be in the front row.
Yep.
Yep.
Ueck was 90, and obviously the longtime voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, Mr. Baseball. He was affectionately known. Made a number of appearances on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. In fact, I think
Yep.
Johnny gave him that nickname, Mr. Baseball, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. But of course, he was in Mr. Belvedere and a couple of other, of course, the great light beer commercials. So Ueck, we lost him last year. He was 90, but what a character in the world of baseball, huh?
Indeed.
Yes.
So Al gets the box set of The White Shadow.
Now
Congratulations.
we gotta get a DVD player or a Blu-ray player. I have nothing that can play disc anymore.
You got to go to Goodwill.
Yeah, really. All right, let me try and bring Coach back. See if
Okay.
things have improved.
See if things have improved with the sun. If not, we can always reschedule with the coach.
Yeah. Are you there, Coach? Yeah, I think we have lost Coach.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to remove him from the studio.
Yeah, I'm gonna just tell him we'll go ahead and reschedule.
Right, please do. Now I need to. There was Coolidge and Salami in Washington. I can't remember any other names. God, I used to watch this so fairly religiously. That's bugging me now.
Those are the only ones I remember.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, and that's right because his character played for the Bulls and tore up his knee in a game and ended up having to be a high school coach. Yeah, I mean they've told a story every week in the credits, in the opening credits.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Run up a layup and then he comes down.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
all right, I guess with that, okay, we're going to try and have Coach on again once we get this technical stuff figured out. We'll do something because we love having Coach on, but with that feedback, we just can't do it tonight. So, and we've been trying to figure it out. All right, with that, Greg, we have lots of hoops to talk about since we have our favorite stats guru with us. No, after he's back from traveling the world. And there's a lot going on to talk about. We have the number one team in the East right now, and who would have saw that coming at the start of the year, you know?
Yeah, the Pistons keep exceeding expectations, don't they? Ever
say the
since
least.
that 28-game losing streak, which was only 2 years ago.
right.
Yeah.
And here we are, the second best record in the league, and suddenly, Oklahoma City has gone cold.
Yeah.
They've been losing to bad teams. They lost to Indiana.
Yeah, they're no longer talking about that 70-win mark for them anymore, that's for sure.
That's right. Yeah, it's a long year, and it's really that last 2 months, the months of May and June, are the ones you got to be healthy and you got to peak.
Yes.
You said. So it's a long way off.
But let's talk about, we're here obviously to talk about the Pistons and their remarkable turnaround. You mentioned 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, was the 28-game losing streak, the 14-win season, the Monty Williams debacle. But in a way, it seems like it was so long ago, even though it wasn't. Did you see this coming, Siddy? I know that when we had you on at the beginning of the season, they had gotten up to like a 4-1 or 4-1 start or something. But did you see this? I mean, I know you really pay attention to the league, but did you see this coming?
No, I didn't. I mean, the closest I could say to seeing it is just the fact that the East did look wide open going into the year. It looked like it was Cleveland's,
Right.
year. And
Right.
Now you look at them; they're fighting to stay above 500. So things are not making a lot of sense. Boston's in second place in the conference, despite missing Tatum and removing all their bigs, and they have the number one offense in the league. I mean, these things just don't make sense. It's hard to figure out. Now, in the case with the Pistons, it just seems like a collection of small moves that have yielded, more than the sum of its parts.
Right.
And isn't that what great basketball teams are? The bad teams often are less than the sum of their parts. A lot of these super teams where you put Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker on a floor together, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
And Detroit's the other end of that. They're the opposite of that, where everything is clicking, and it has been clicking since, they brought in the new regime, the new GM. It just a lot of small moves, bringing in the right kind of pieces that fit together, your three-point shooters, instead of bringing in, guys that don't play and you eat their contract in exchange for, like Joe Harris and, collecting a couple of second rounders. We're actually getting guys that can play.
Right.
Tim Hardaway Jr. last year and Malik Beasley this year, LeVert and Duncan Robinson. And that was it. It wasn't major surgery.
Right. So when you and the other thing is, they've obviously avoided any real, lengthy stretches of bad play. Their longest losing streak is 2. I think they had a little bit of a tough time when they first went out west. They lost to a couple of bad teams, but then recovered and beat the Lakers. Just bitch slapped the Lakers on national TV on that 5th game of that road trip. They've avoided slumps, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and that's why they have a 33-11 record, 750 ball. But what I wrote today was that's all well and good, and it's great, and it's a rebirth of basketball in Detroit, certainly, but I'm still concerned, and I want to get your opinion on this, Siddy, if you share my concern, that they're still not a great three-point shooting team. They're about 18th in percentage. They're 27th in attempts. that's not their milieu, is the 3-point ball, the 3-ball. And as you know, because you love the 3-ball, this is a league where you have to, most good teams thrive in that area. Does that concern you heading into the second half of the season? And do you think Trajan Langdon needs to address that?
They do need to address it, but that's dangerous because, do you want to play around with, be a chemist and play around with a team mid-season with the top record in the East? I mean, that would be, it almost seems like insane. I mentioned this, I haven't been on, on Twitter very much, but I did mention recently that, the guy out there whose name gets tossed around a lot is Lauri Markkanen with the Utah Jazz. I mean, he's a stud. He's a 7-foot wing that can drain threes and take it to the rim, and you could play, small ball with him if you want. And there are a lot of, he could bring some offense. But why is this team winning? If you bring him in, that means you got to subtract parts. You're going to change the chemistry. What's going to happen? And I mean, no one knows.
Right.
So that represents a risk, but they do need shooting. Let me describe the Pistons to you in a stat kind of way. Generally speaking, your great teams, your championship teams, what they do on the page is they have a very large differential between their offense and defense in terms of shooting the basketball. Your efficiencies.
Right.
Right. And, when you go back to the 80s and the Lakers and Celtics, those great teams, they would have like a 9-point advantage, a 10-point advantage on a game-to-game basis in terms of shooting the basketball. And then the other consideration is the number of shots you take, and that's related to rebounding and turnovers.
Right.
And a large majority of the teams in the area of rebounding and turnovers, that number is small. It has a value of like 1 point or less. So it does not influence the games as much as your shooting efficiency. But at any given moment, there are always like a couple of teams that are really good at taking extra shots, rebounding turnovers. There are always a couple of teams that are really bad at it.
Right.
Detroit is the team right now that's great at it. They're, the dog pound. They grind every night. And that translates into lots of extra shots. So when you look at the box score, look at the field goal attempts, look at the free throw attempts, you'll notice that quite often Detroit will be taking 10 extra shots. And that's how they're coming out ahead. It's compensating for basically being an average shooting team.
Right.
Now, can you win a championship that way? I don't think anyone has in a long, long time. I'd have to, research it, but it has its limits. So, to answer your question, how far can you go with this? I don't think it's enough to win a title.
Well, you know what? Let's go back to what you said a few minutes ago about making a change has its risks. Certainly, making a change has its risks. There's no question about that. And look no further than the great 1989 trade of Adrian Dantley for Mark McGuire. That was fraught with risks because of the time that it was made and what was at stake at the time, which was everybody kind of thought the Pistons were a championship or bust team at that point. They had been to the finals. They had been rising gradually through the decade of the 80s, and that was the team that everybody felt like this is it. I mean, this was their time. And so Jack McCloskey makes that trade, and of course that could considerably have disrupted the chemistry, if you want to use that word. So, and it paid off, obviously, in spades. But I don't know that we're talking, Siddy, about anything that drastic. Are we talking maybe? Could you make a low-level move, or are we at the point now where the moves the Pistons have to make to seriously address the situation would have to involve lots of assets going the other way?
Yeah, well, the assets could be, the Pistons have all their firsts. So, they, probably, a team would be interested in getting firsts and, expiring contracts. So, the first, are not going to affect this year's team.
Right.
The expiring contracts, you hear Tobias Harris's name. Duncan Robinson has team options on his contracts, but he's a guy the Pistons need.
Right.
Bringing the 3-point shooting. They could put something together. Here's what I keep coming back to with Detroit. Let me just pose a question to you in terms of, I often talk about impact scoring nights.
Right.
Think, Jokic and Shea and these guys, they do it on almost a nightly basis. They have a big impact in the scoring column. And by that, I mean also it's shooting efficiency. It's not about scoring 20 points or 40 points. It's about being efficient. You can have an impact scoring night with as little as 8 points, the way I measure it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So in the Pistons, the guy with the most impact scoring nights is Jalen Duren. He has 16. Last year, the leader was Malik Beasley. He had 32, 12th in the league. Then Cade and Duren both had 24. This year, Duren's at 16, Cade's at 14. So they're kind of on the same pace. Duren's bumped it up a little bit. These are not outstanding numbers. They're solid numbers. But that's for your leading scorers. Now, if I were to pose this question to you, though, what Piston has 0 impact scoring nights? And we're going to eliminate guys like Chaz Lanier,
right.
Eliminate the Bobby Clintons, the Tolu Smiths, okay? Guys that played 8 games in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So there's one guy who has 0. Do you want to guess who that is? You're right.
Asar Thompson.
Yep.
Right.
That makes sense, yeah.
That would have been my guess.
So that leads to the question, if you're the Utah Jazz, you wouldn't mind having Asar Thompson. You might demand Asar Thompson as part of a deal, which then leads to the question, if you remove Asar and insert Markkanen, what's that going to do? I don't have that vision. I don't know. Asar Thompson's, the defensive guy, and he's a ball handler. And, so the Pistons are trying to operate in a weird way because you think about the Ben Wallace team, Ben didn't have any offense, right? But so they sacrificed the big man position and had 4 scorers around him. And that was kind of common back in the day.
Right.
But Detroit's got a wing where normally you're expecting 3-point shooting.
Right.
Not, producing in that way. And that's weird. It's a weird construction.
Right.
And I don't want to lose Asar Thompson. I'm not recommending it. But when you start playing, Dr. Frankenstein, what do you do? And that you think about maybe him.
Yeah. I'm going to put a pin in what I was going to say and turn this over to. We're talking with Siddy Hall, our resident NBA staff guru here. Knee Jerks. I'm Greg Eno from GregEno.substack.com. Out of Bounds Substack, and of course Big Al Beaton is here. But let's go to Nick Milanovich. What you got for Siddy Hall?
Well, I was thinking going along this lines of thinking and who do you add and subtract? So stepping back a little bit, I know with the other Detroit teams, they're on the cusp of playoffs or they were in the playoffs, and fan bases are howling at the team to pick up somebody by the trade deadline to sort of kind of help get them to the next level or beef up their lineups somehow. And we go to the Pistons, and I almost dread changing that roster because I've seen trade proposals all season long, and they've been the stupidest things I've ever heard. I don't know how many weeks we've been talking about Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, all of a sudden Markkanen. I don't know who else. I lost track of all these guys. And you're always going to get rid of Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, 2 first-round picks, and maybe more.
Yep.
I just think even with Asar Thompson, honestly, he's a horrible shooter. And if I see him at the 3-point line, I just wince. But he's got sort of that energy that team likes. These guys went through a horrible 14-win season together. And the thing about them is that they have chips on their shoulders from it, and I think that's what's really driving them now. Nobody wants to go through that again, or even close. And
Thompson's a weird guy, you know. When they drafted him, I was talking about him and saying, you know, what a risk that was to draft a guy at number 5, a guy who can't shoot. And
you mean Thompson?
I'll start Thompson, yeah. And it's just really interesting to watch him. He's a little bit old school. He just kind of floats up and down the baseline and catches passes near the basket and gets his dunks. And that's a very old school way of playing, you know. And now everything's spread out, and he doesn't really want the ball out at the 3-point line. But his great quickness allows him to, navigate a little bit with the ball, and he can get by his defender even though they're giving him the 3, and somehow it's working. And then of course defensively, guarding the perimeter is, that's where defense is played now. So, he's part of that equation. I just want to throw something out there though. I haven't really read or heard much, but when you go back to last off season, we heard almost nothing about Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey receiving contract extensions. There are no rumors about it. It was a very common procedure, and in the Pistons, it wasn't done. They're saying, go ahead, play your last year. I assume there's communication and agreements of some sort between the agents and the teams, particularly with Duren. But I'm kind of operating on the theory that the Pistons have a plan, and they're going to go into this next off season, and they're going to make a move. They're not doing it now. This is just bonus right now. This wasn't expected. Just enjoy the first place. They're going to take it as far as they can, and then in the off season, they're going to have some cap space, and they're going to go after somebody, and then they're going to go over the salary cap and sign Duren and Ivy, because you can sign your own guys.
Right.
That's the plan. The plan is, the next couple of years, not just this year. So,
no, I get that, but Ivy though, Siddy, I'm glad you mentioned him because I was going to bring him up. You mentioned, Osser is a weird guy. I'm getting the feeling this Ivy thing is getting a little weird. And when I say that, I mean that he's only averaged about 18 minutes a night, and I'm struggling to even hit 20 minutes a night on most occasions actually. And there's some talk that maybe he's not quite happy about that this was, I feel like that was maybe the game plan earlier in the year, but here we are now, some 44 games into the season, and he's still struggling to find time on the floor. And I don't know, do you think that's still related to he coming back from the injury, or is there just not enough minutes to go around?
I believe it's a blessing in disguise, because they're going to be able to sign him for less money. I don't think he's going anywhere. That's my guess. People get too excited and too nervous. The guy had 2 major injuries.
Right.
Comes back, team's winning.
Right.
They're not just going to tear the team up so he can get his 35 minutes.
Right.
There are 9, 10 other guys. So they're just, he's got to kind of weave his way into the fabric. And I think he's actually playing a lot better than he's getting credit for. People are looking at those minutes. I'm looking at his numbers right now. I mean, coming off his injury, entering the 2 injuries, entering the season with no training camp, he's shooting 55% on his 2s. He's shooting 38 on his 3s. That's not chopped liver, my friends.
No, it's not.
At all.
Right.
I'm looking at his per 36, 4.5 boards, 3.5 assists, a steal, 18 points. Come on. Those are good numbers.
Sure.
He's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
The problem is Detroit has too many guys. That's great.
Yeah, nice problem there. Let's bring Big Al into the discussion. What you got for Siddy Hall?
Yeah, it's interesting when you mentioned that they have too many guys and there's a struggle for playing time. One guy that no one saw coming this year was Dennis Jenkins. who's honestly, if you're talking about guys who have earned playing time and has maybe helped take away some from Ivy and maybe Levert, is him, because Jenkins is actually shooting well from three. He can actually handle the ball. He can distribute the ball better than those guys can. And he's still on a cheap two-way contract, which obviously the Pistons are going to convert to a full NBA contract when the time limit runs out shortly. But if there's one guy who has really been a major surprise this year and has actually really solidified his spot on the roster, is Jenkins.
Well, they're 33-11, and remember, he won a couple of games for the
Yes.
Pistons.
Yeah, sure did. Absolutely.
Paul Reed won a game. Remember,
B-ball
he came
Paul.
in as a starter and scored like 33 points.
Yeah.
They had that skeleton lineup, and these guys know their roles. So that's a credit to JB Bickerstaff. He communicates with these guys, and even going back to Ivy, I haven't heard Ivy make any public criticisms about his situation. He hasn't pulled, a Killian Hayes here.
Yeah, all you hear is, I don't like his body language. I don't agree with that at all, because you're just seeing snippets of a guy on camera. That's
He's
bullshit.
a gamer. Yeah, and his mom's a coach, right? So,
big time. Yeah, a big time coach.
Be in his ear and keeping him focused.
Right.
And going back to Jenkins, this reminds me of one of my criticisms, of Troy Weaver. Weaver, one of my pet peeves with him was his inability, his refusal to work the edges and find guys for free. All the good, you look at, I talk about Miami. Miami's constantly finding guys. They never stop looking. And finally, after all these years of being in, this bad team, 5 years, and those 4 or 5 years Weaver was here, he found nobody. I don't think he found one guy. And then now suddenly Langdon comes up with Jenkins, who played a little bit at the end of last year. He showed a flash. And there seems to be like a system in place. When the Pistons had a series of injuries, they brought up Tolu Smith, they brought up Clinton. These guys played together. They were getting their 25 minutes together. Sasser got into the lineup. And it feels like there's a system there. And everybody's on board with it, and everybody understands what's happening. There's player development going on. And like you said, Jenkins, he's a contributor. He can score. He can find shots.
Yeah, he had 15 assists the other night. Yeah.
Cost nothing.
Yeah. And that goes around, as you're going around finding guys on the edges that can improve your team. Javonte Green's another one. People are like, what are you signing him for? And he's become a very useful player who's giving you 20 minutes a night.
He's one of the dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
He's been great. I got to kick myself in the butt because I have a little bit of a bias. When they signed him, I'm like, I wanted a young guy. I wanted a young guy they could develop. And they went with the vet. He's like 31, 32. But he's got a great track record. Just 2 years ago with Chicago, he had an excellent year. He had an injury, and he sort of got kicked to the curb. This guy's always been kicked to the curb. He's never had an easy path. And you look at what he's doing now, just nightly basis, just being a dog, knocking down threes, making plays, making hustle plays, fitting in, with Holland and these guys. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I like about, I'm glad you mentioned Holland, because I was going to go to him as well. Ron Holland, he got ejected the other night against the Kings. So it didn't matter. They were up by 20 with 5 minutes to go, but whatever. But this Holland and guys, there's a lot of guys on this team. You mentioned dogs. There's a lot of guys on this team, Siddy, that play. And Nick mentioned it earlier about the chip on the shoulder. They play with an edge, and I like that. There's an edge about this team. There's a little bit of an attitude that reminds me of the Bad Boys days. They're not that physical, not as physical as the Bad Boys are, but they've got an edge to them. And Holland is a good example of that. When I saw that play out against the Kings the other night, I said to myself, Ron Holland doesn't take anybody's shit. He doesn't. And there are a lot of Pistons that don't either. and they kind of feed off each other. And the funny thing about that is, JB doesn't strike me as that kind of a coach or that kind of it's coming from somewhere. And they have this mentality. And I think that Nick's onto something when he said that nobody wants to go through what they went through a couple of years ago. And they do play with that. They're angry. They're playing. I mentioned in my piece today that I feel like they're on a mission. They're taking revenge on teams that used to kick sand in their face. Are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing? This kind of edge that these guys play with.
They play angry, and unlike a lot of young guys who are quote unquote wide-eyed, these guys did not enter the league wide-eyed at all. Right. Ron Holland has been good from day one. Right. I had, a little bit of reservations about him. I'm like, I was afraid he was going to be, I was watching his film and he kind of puts his head down and goes in straight lines and crashes into guys. But that hasn't been a problem. He gets the ball in his hands and it's gone. He keeps the ball moving for his teammates. He understands, the importance of that. And then occasionally he will make his move. He's got a lot of Bruce Brown in him because, Bruce was one of my favorite Pistons in recent years. And they're similar in that they are in an adventure because whenever they shoot, whenever they drive, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if the ball's going in or not. And every time it goes in, it's like a mild surprise. Layups where he ends up on his back. And it's fun. It's fun to watch. But that intensity, that is, the secret ingredient, because that means they bring it every night. That kind of intensity is not the same as your jumper that can come and go. They bring the intensity every night, and that translates into turnovers. It translates into rebounding. It translates into extra shots. Let me throw a stat at you, I've mentioned before, try to follow me on this, but again, the value of shooting efficiency between Team A and Team B. In general, on average, on a given night, it's going to be about 10 or 11 points between them. And when you have that 10-point edge, you're going to win, more than 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. If that number gets up to 20, if you have a 20-point edge, it's like 99.7%. Like between 20 and 25% of the games, quarter of the games, one team has like a 20-point edge or better. It's a lock. Game's over. But once a year, somebody will pull something out of their hat by getting those extra 20 shots, those extra 25 shots, 27 shots. It's happened this year. Guess who did it? Detroit. It was the Washington game where Cade scored 45 on 46 points. It was Cade and the skeleton crew. If you go look at that box, Detroit took like 25 extra shots. They won by like 2 in overtime. Right. And even like 2 weeks ago, they lost by, I think it was, I don't know if it was it wasn't the Utah game. It was a different game. But there was another game they took like 25 extra shots and lost by 1 or 2. I mean, these are really, really rare moments in the entire NBA. And the Pistons are doing this. That's who they are. But as I mentioned earlier, it seems to have limits. You got to have a certain level of shooting efficiency. But anyway, let's turn around, go back to what you said earlier, comparing this team to the Bad Boys and the Ben Wallace. What was that? The lunch bucket team or
the going to work Pistons?
Going to work. Yeah. I mean, this team is in the same mold. Top level defense. They're the number 2 defense in the league. Offense can cough and wheeze and struggle, not on the same level as the defense. I mean, it's the exact same mold in terms of stats.
Well, it's whatever is happening is working. It's turning the city on. I don't think I'm any longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. For about the first 30 games of the season, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I don't think the other shoe is going to drop. They got a West Coast Western. I should not necessarily West Coast, but Western trip coming up right now. I think it's Denver, Phoenix, and Golden State.
Golden State. Yep.
And so that'll be a test. Interesting to see what Trajan does, if anything. I think that the core is young enough where you, to your point, Siddy, they don't have to make a big move. But also to your point, you're questioning whether or not they can win a championship. But are we in I don't think we're in a championship or bust mode right now, though. Are we? Even though, despite the 33-11 record.
No, we're not in that. We're just trying to take it as far as we can. We want to get to the conference finals. And that's going to go. We'll see how things line up with the, the seeding. What's they're going to be one. I think they're going to be number one. I think they're going to stay there. They got a 5-game cushion on a Boston team that has not had an injury all year.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for something to happen there. I don't think Boston can maintain it. New York, they're in third. But they're gonna, who are they gonna have to go through?
Right.
Who's gonna be in that 4 and 5 spot?
Right.
That'll be their second round matchup.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting. But we want to get to the conference finals, and at least finals would be great. Seems doable. I mean, it doesn't seem like the roadblocks are extremely difficult, right?
We're talking with our resident NBA stat guru, Siddy Hall, here in the Knee Jerks. Let's bring Nick and Big Al for one more each. Let's go with Nick first. What you got?
Here's one question for you. I was reading an article out of like Yahoo Sports News, and they were picking like of the year people for the various awards. Actually, the two that I saw was like Defensive Player of the Year and Coach of the Year. And all of these guys, it surprised me because I have been watching plenty of Pistons, and then it was games where it wasn't necessarily a Detroit broadcast of the Pistons. It was, other teams or national. And who gets named as a possible Defensive Player of the Year is Isaiah Stewart. And then the other one, for Coach of the Year, I'm hearing J.B. Bickerstaff, which personally I think he should have won it last year. Over Atkinson.
JB seems like a lock, huh? I mean,
you would think
the 2-year climb from 14.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, last year was just like phenomenal, and So
the Coach of the Year that can kind of accumulate from year to year. He gets bonus points from last year plus this year.
Right.
Yeah, I can see him doing. Yeah.
So now, in this article, it's like without exception, I think everybody chose the Spurs coach for Coach of the Year. And I think everybody chose Wembanyama as the Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm like, which kind of surprised me. And
seems a little premature. Let's wait on Wemby until he's clearly the guy. He's still in the learning process. No, you got to go with JB. Now, as far as Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, that's really hard to figure out. There are so many candidates. And especially now, again, that perimeter defender is so important, So I thought you were going to say Alsar Thompson, instead of Beef Stew.
No.
So people.
I mean, I would lean towards Isaiah Stewart myself, and.
Well, how many minutes? Isn't he just playing like 25 a game or something? That would be kind of weird to give a Player of the Year award for 25
Yeah, 23 minutes. And that's probably why he's not getting it, because he's playing essentially as a sixth man. Hell, you could make a better argument that he'd be Sixth Man of the Year, at least if you factor in his defense. And if with Stewart, it's the intangibles. He really kind of feels like the heart and soul of the team.
Well,
so last year.
Right? Go ahead.
Last year he was considered for Defensive Player of the Year, but he was under the minimum number of minutes. He was just under 20. So I think they're trying to get him over 20 so he could actually qualify for that. And why wouldn't you want to play the guy? So
I'd have to think about that. Defensive Player of the Year is tough. Let's let the year play out. It's nice that he's being talked about, right? He got the Defensive Player of the Month, which I guess is a new award or something.
Yeah.
It's really weird, though, to watch his development, how it started last year. He just seemed to become more explosive around the rim, reminding me a bit of a younger Draymond Green. You know, Green was a guy you did not
Yeah.
expect to be a shot blocker, kind of a big guy. And Beef Stew's more bouncy, you know. But, you know, you just don't, you know, guys are getting near the basket and thinking they have a clear path. And suddenly, you know, Stewart's just quicker than they are. It's got like that quick Ben Wallace hop without quite the altitude, right? Ben was one of a kind.
He sure
But
was.
yeah, so you know what I noticed too? You know, there are all these weird defensive stats out there. You know, I'll be on Twitter and people are having lists of like the best and the worst, and you know they have all these weird ways of measuring defense, which is almost unmeasurable in my view.
That's probably why there's so many ways to do it. Yeah.
So I saw like the bottom 5 in the league, and 2 of them were Pistons. It was Jalen Duren and Duncan Robinson. I'm like, wait a second, they're we got the number 2 defense in the league, and you're telling me that 2 of the starters are bottom 5 in the whole league in defense? I don't think so. I don't think your stat is working, my friend.
The way I look at social media stats is somebody's got a story to tell, and they cherry pick the numbers to tell that story. Half the time, they don't even know what the hell they're looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go to Big Al for one more. What you got for Siddy Hall?
Oh, I would just add about Isaiah Stewart. He punches people, but not his teammates. So compared to the guy we were just comparing him to. So, but
yeah, go ahead, please.
but he's been a joy to watch. He really has. And the other thing with Stewart, before we move on, he actually has a 3-point shot now. He's become a legitimate stretch big, which is something the Pistons have been dying to see from him, and it's really come out this year. He's like 35% three. And who would have saw that 6 years ago from him? So, but it's funny how we're talking about all these different contributors. Even though Duncan Robinson's playing out of his mind, no one saw him be as all around a player he has been, and and Duran having a breakout year, and Jenkins coming out of nowhere. And we're not even talking about Cade Cunningham for the most part.
Wow, yeah, we haven't mentioned him.
Yeah, and the guy is having a monster season. He's like 26-10 or something to that effect, and he's actually become what put him a step up on a lot of his contemporaries that he gets compared to they're talking about top 5 MVP, is that he actually plays defense, and he has that big guard body, which helps him do that, and he's not afraid to use it. And he's become a pleasure to watch. Even though he struggled this past week because of that wrist injury he's had, the guy is... I just love watching how he plays. He's very physical. He has a good mid-range game. And I think the last thing to come, which still hasn't arrived quite yet, is his 3-point shot. He's still around 31% right now. Yeah, he's not there with that. If he finds that the guy's going to be unstoppable.
He needs it, man.
I
was saying I wanted him to get stronger in the off season. I thought that would help his 3-point shooting. But he's the ringleader, and the thing that's really so valuable about him is just to have a real ball handler. A lot of teams are trying to get by without a pure point guard, and you have a real guy. What is he? They say 6'6". I always think he's taller, and but he's a genuine heads up, see the floor, bring the ball up, point guard.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to sacrifice on defense.
Right.
The dying breed in the NBA right now are small guards. You can't, it's really hard to hide them on defense. Guys get caught on switches. If you get a little guard caught in a switch in the paint, it's over. It's a bucket. And the Pistons don't have that problem. And one of the reasons is when you have a 6'6" point guard who can play physical basketball. Mm-hmm. And those things don't show up in the box score, as they say.
Well, you've told us that Steph Curry didn't really become Steph Curry until maybe his 3rd, 4th, 5th year, and now Cade is in his this is his 5th year. But of course, he missed virtually missed an entire season for injury, so he really can kind of say this is his 4th season, and he is, like Al said, just completely having a monster year. He's funny. I look back at him. I think back to other Pistons greats who played for this franchise, and he's probably the most, the least gregarious of all of them. And that's not a put down. It's not a criticism. he's not doesn't have the personality of Isaiah Thomas or Chauncey Billups. He doesn't have the he's not even like the Mr. Nice Guy that Grant Hill was either. He's just a dude, and he's just a really good basketball player who has embraced the city, but he doesn't appear to me to be doesn't have that personality that you would think a guy of his magnitude would have. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. It's not a criticism. It really isn't. It's just my observation.
I've always been thought of him. I have like basketball fan bro love for him because he looks cool.
Yeah.
He's a very cool looking guy. He's got the cool hair. Looks like he's, looks like there's a huge fan blowing in his face when he's doing nothing. Right? Isn't that cool? Yeah. And he's, and he's kind of serious. He sets a serious tone for the team. He doesn't seem to be too impressed with himself about, where the cameras are. He doesn't have the narcissistic trait that often accompanies that level of fame, and that's cool. It's part of why he's cool and the team is cool.
Right.
And then you got guys like Ron Holland and Beef Stew knocking heads, and there's a lot to love here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, for sure.
Jalen Duren. We haven't even talked about Duren.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
No one. He might make the All-Star.
There are 11 guys, and the coach and the GM. There's just so many guys. Yeah,
it really is. It's really been a remarkable turnaround, and that's probably the one thing. You look back at the other Pistons championship teams, they all kind of slowly ascended, and over a period of at least 2 or 3 years anyway before they won the thing. And this one has just kind of come up. Not that they won the championship this year, but I'm saying all the great Pistons teams of the past ascended kind of slowly or gradually, consistently. And this one has just kind of come out of nowhere. And that's what I think what makes it so fun is people really do remember just how shitty it was here 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're following the Oklahoma City path. Oklahoma City went from 22 to 40 to like 57. They took big steps with a young team. But I just looking ahead, thinking about the playoffs, I want to see, good matchups. I hope the Piston path goes through Cleveland. That's what I want to watch, because that Cleveland starting five is still a really, really tough group.
Right.
And I think that will be fun to watch. They're two bigs. Mobley, wasn't Mobley in the same draft as Cade? Evan Mobley. I think he was the defensive player of the year last year. Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. They've got other guys that help, DeAndre Hunter. That's a talented team. And that's a kind of team that could suddenly peak at playoff time.
Yeah.
So, just looking ahead, I hope, that we meet again in April. And maybe the Pistons are the 1 seed and Cleveland's a 4 or 5. And it sets up a collision, in round 2. But we'll see.
We will see, and we will bring you back in time for said playoffs, which will be here before you know it. How fast time goes by. And Siddy, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you guys. Take care.
Indeed.
Thanks. All right. See you, Siddy.
All right.
Right on.
And we'll reschedule Ray Scott. I'm not worried about
that.
We'll get Ray on the show. That's not a concern of mine. Good stuff as usual from Siddy. Some good stats. And he's seems to be very impressed with what's going on as well.
Yeah, considering all the drama that we've talked about recently with the Lions and the Tigers not doing anything, it's nice to talk about a team where everything's positive right now. Obviously, it may not stay that way for much for the rest of the season, but we're in the honeymoon stage with the Pistons right now. That's really where we're at, and they really have not hit a bad stretch, and they're healthy. And what's been more impressive is even when they weren't healthy, they were able to play through it, unlike some other teams in this town. So it's been a great year so far. We're almost to the All-Star break. I think I think the trade deadline is like 2 weeks away. So there's a lot to talk about with them, to say the very least.
Right. Yep.
All right. Let's before we got a little bit of time yet before we sign out today, so we could talk about a couple other things that are kind of what's going on in Detroit sports. I guess we should touch a little bit on the Lions guys hiring a new offensive coordinator, and the fan base absolutely in its fucking mind. But what's funny, and then today they announced they hired another offensive assistant, and they're all happiness and light about that. Because last week the Lions hired Drew Petzing as the new offensive coordinator. He was he spent, I believe, the last 3 seasons as the OC with the Cardinals, and essentially it felt like the fan base had its heart set on Mike McDaniel, and it looks like, and there was a report that came out that said that Dan Campbell really liked him, but that was quote, Campbell liked him, but the Lions, as in the organization, didn't think he was a fit. And apparently that set the fan base into an outrage, and then even more so when they hired a guy they didn't really know much about from a team that went 4-13, maybe 4-13 I think last year. So. But then today it was announced that the Lions had hired the interim head coach of the Giants, who was also supposedly a candidate for the OC, and that would be Mike Kafka. So, and he's another offensive specialist. So it kind of looks like Petzing is the guy who has the run game skills, and Kafka is the guy who has the passing game skills, because he called a great game against the Lions when the Lions struggled to beat the Giants this past year.
Right.
So, but it's kind of funny, guys, seeing how the reaction to the two hires, if it had gone the other way around, let's say they had hired Kafka first and then Petzing, I think the fan base would have taken this whole thing differently. But the reaction, guys, period, was absolutely. It was so over the top. I couldn't get over it. I mean, Petzing ticked a lot of the boxes that the fan base wanted. He was not from the Campbell, Sean Payton tree. He was not an inside hire.
Right.
He is best known for using the running game to set up the pass. He loves tight ends. He had an elite tight end in Arizona. And yet, despite that, all the fan base seemed to see, guys, was, they only won 4 games. He must suck. And not realizing that, their offense was about as decimated as the Lions' defense was last year. I mean, and plus, Kyler Murray is your quarterback. He can't even see over his center. He's like 5'2", something like that. So. But obviously there's mitigating circumstances as to what happened in Arizona. Plus the fact they were like, he got fired. No, he didn't get fired. The head coach got fired. And so, the new guy's going to want his own people in there. So regardless of all that, the Lions supposedly have now found their offensive assistants. And guys, I'm just glad the drama's over, because it was getting stupid online when it came to reactions as to the interviews. Remember when they were interviewing David Blau, and people lost their minds over that. He sucked as a quarterback. Well, they're not interviewing him to be a quarterback. This fan base sometimes online. I'm sure. I don't know. You guys see a lot of it, because I know you spend a lot of time on Twitter. In the Detroit sports Twitter, and it got out of control at times.
My favorite is still someone throwing out the idea of Dan Orlovsky being.
Yes.
The offensive coordinator is like, I don't think the guy knew how the end zone worked. So, as a quarterback. So, but it was, I think you're absolutely right. It got ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, they hear about a guy that they're presented with a guy who they've probably never heard of before.
That's the other thing, too. Yeah.
Cycle.
Yep.
I've never heard of this guy before now.
Yeah. Right.
Not that I would ever give a shit about the Arizona Cardinals anyway, but
right.
And you can't, how would I say it? How can you tell how good this guy is? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Johnny Morton, I had no idea. I'd never heard his name before. If I hear Johnny Morton, I think of the wide receiver from back in the 90s.
Right.
Exactly.
So, I have no idea how this is going to play out. Is this going to be any good? I don't know. Dan Campbell picked Anthony Lynn. He picked Johnny Morton. both were a disaster. This guy could be a disaster, or he could be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he picked Ben Johnson. He's the one that promoted him.
That's right.
So yeah,
let him play a few fucking games before we figure this out.
Yeah.
And Ben Johnson was a Matt Patricia guy. Nobody seems to remember that. I mean, Matt Patricia.
He was like the tight ends coach for Matt Patricia or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you never know. The thing about Kafka though is I don't know what role. We don't know yet what role he's going to have.
Yeah, just that they made it sound like it's going to have a high-ranking title.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up like being assistant head coach or something like that.
Right, but the only thing that bothers me, I don't know if it bothers me, but that I'm a little concerned about with this move is.
Greg hates the move.
No. You mentioned Twitter. I'm more on Reddit. I get my pulse from Reddit way more than Twitter. But what a lot of folks, and I was telling Nick this before the show, we were texting, and Nick said, well, why are they excited about Kafka? Well, a lot of the Lions fans wanted Kafka as almost a consolation prize if they couldn't get McDaniel. Offensive coordinator.
And it was another name they recognized. I think that plays into it.
People that wanted him over McDaniel, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So, but my concern is, how is this going to work? I don't know. And the funny thing is, I've never known a team to interview a guy to be a coordinator, not give him the job, and then hire him anyway to do something else. Yeah. And this is what happened with the Lions. They interviewed Kafka. He was one of the 10 people they interviewed for the OC job. Didn't hire him, but now here they are hiring him. And Kafka, of course, was candidate for other jobs as well in the league. Mm-hmm. So I just don't know what they're going to do with this guy. I don't. Giants fans came into the Lions Reddit today and said, good hire. Kafka knows offense, knows how to run an offense. What torpedoed the Giants this year, they said, was the defense. That's why the Giants were so bad. It wasn't the offense, it was the defense. And if you saw that Lions game, you mentioned that Lions-Giants game now, you mentioned earlier this year, that rings true because the Giants' offense was pretty good and their defense was not. So that's why the Giants lost that game. But so I just don't know how this is going to work. I'm not sure. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Somebody suggested, is it a co-offensive coordinator thing? And I don't know if they would have. I don't know if they would have hired Petzing.
I don't think he would have taken the job either if they.
Right. Yeah. And I wonder what's going through his mind. Quite frankly, I mean, I know everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be, to be a team player. But if I'm an OC, and I get the job, which is a good job, by the way, one of the best jobs in the NFL in terms of OC. And then a week later, they bring in some other guy who also interviewed for my job. It's just kind of weird to me. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket here, but I just don't know what this is all about. I really don't.
Well, and the thing is, though, we're probably not going to learn anything till none of these guys are probably going to talk. I think till the combine. Right. So we're all going to be kind of left hanging. But that is a good point. But I don't think Petzing takes the job if he isn't allowed to be the play caller. Right. So, but it is an interesting dynamic as bringing in Kafka. Is he going? Yeah, is he going to be more of a big picture guy, or what? Because especially this is a guy not with head coaching experience now. Very similar to Campbell, who himself was an interim with Miami before he ultimately became a full-fledged head coach. So, but that's a good point as to what's the strategy here when it comes to how they're building the coaching staff. And like I said, we're going to be in the dark probably for another couple months at least. So. Right. But one thing I did want to bring up with all this stuff is also, since we're talking about how irrational this fan base can be, and especially if you spent even 30 seconds listening to sports talk radio, which I made the mistake a couple times of doing over the past couple weeks, and hearing the irrational hate the Lions fan base had for Ben Johnson. And what gets me about this, let's say, when you put it this way, Ben Johnson stayed a year longer than he needed to stay. He could have gotten a head coaching job a year earlier, but elected to stay and wanted to try and win a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator of Detroit. He also, they say, well, he wasn't concentrating during the playoffs. Well, then you have an issue with the NFL, not with Ben Johnson, because of how they handle interviewing during the playoffs. They should either, wait, they should do something with the timeline. That's not Ben Johnson's fault. The other thing is, well, he went to the Bears. Well, apparently he made the right damn decision. I mean, he wanted the best. If you're going to take a new job, don't you want to take the one that's going to put you in the best position to succeed? Well, apparently Ben Johnson's waited to go, well, I have to take the Bears job. They have a quarterback. They have a team that looks like they're ready to take a step. And that's exactly what they did. Ben Johnson comes in, they win a division to make the playoffs. And fans are upset about that when he made the smart decision. He went to the right fit for him, and it paid off. So, I got to say it, guys. This Lions fan base has become so insufferable since the team got good because of stuff like this. I mean, Ben Johnson, say what you will about him, the guy's a great offensive coordinator. He did nothing. He was nothing but positive with the Lions, and you should say, tip the hat, let him go, even if once to the Bears, and move on. And everybody moves on. But the irrational, then you have sports talk radio egging this on like one of the topics you'd hear. Well, who would you rather see win, Matt Stafford or Ben Johnson? I don't give a shit either way. Neither one of them are with the team anymore. And don't even get me going on the fans that still glaze Stafford. They tend to forget that he wanted to leave. He asked to leave. And I've always been of the thought of, if you aren't part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And I think that kind of fits with Matthew Stafford. All right, that is okay. That's my rant right there about the fan base. I'll let you guys react to what I just said.
I would say I can totally understand where you're coming from with this, and I know with the Lions fans, like everything is personal because they're so emotionally invested in this team.
Yes, everything is personal. Yeah,
it's all of a sudden personal. Like, why did Ben Johnson leave? Oh, it's the damn refs that are out after us. Like, and I think this must be a sign of a fan base that has seen some shitty football for decades nonstop. And every little thing is like, and, you give them a good team for, like, say, 3.5 years or something. Yeah. And they're euphoric. They're, like, high, like they're on crack, right? Yeah. And, and now you're taking their crack away from them. Right, you're taking the lighter away. They can't light their pipe, and everything is just this, like, just going nuts over, whatever it might be, and every little thing that could possibly, how would I say, throw off this delicate balance of this, the Lions, march to the Super Bowl kind of thing. So when you got to look back, it's like, okay, this team this past year, lousy offensive coordinator, crappy line, offensive and defensive wasn't that much better, bunch of injuries. They just didn't play well enough. Yeah. They struggled against shitty teams like the Giants. They struggled against a shitty Kansas City team. They got thumped by Kansas City, and Kansas City's terrible. They missed the playoffs too. And, so even while Mahomes was healthy, so it's like, okay, just give it a rest. It's not. It's like every single move is judged with such kind of like it's given so much weight. Like this is going to like throw everything off. It's like settle down, and it's kind of like
as we keep saying. Rebuilds aren't linear. Right. I mean, and we see a lot of good. I mean, look at the Seahawks, for example. They had a couple of years where they were like 9-8 or something like that. They're just this build up to where they are now. So it just feels like this fan base is they want to go completely all in for 1 year. Of making a Super Bowl run, but the issue is there's no guarantees you're going to make it. I mean, didn't the Packers go all in? Got knocked out of the playoffs. The Colts went all in. Didn't even make the playoffs. And the Colts they gave up a big part of the future. When they give up 2 first-round draft picks for Sauce Gardner, and then the quarterback gets hurt, and they're out of the playoffs. Now, I'm kind of do buy into kind of the thing that would you be better off being very, very good and trying to get as many bites as the apple as possible before you have to rebuild, or you try to gobble it all up at one time and then you get maybe a year and then you got to start all over again and try, and it really feels I would rather a team be very good for a very long time and they have numerous shots and making a Super Bowl run than going all in once and then what happens if you don't win,
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll even add in the Rams to that list of teams you talked about. Like,
Yeah.
they were really good this year.
Yes,
If
they
you look
were.
at their offense, they had Stafford, who's playing out of his mind. I think he's playing better than I've seen him play.
He's probably going to be MVP.
He's got Nakua, who catches everything,
Yep.
and he's got Devontae Adams. Sorry,
Yeah.
Devontae Adams. He's got good running backs, and the defense is pretty good. And they didn't win.
Yep.
They didn't win. They got beat. Seattle outplayed them. You can't win every year. And it wasn't because of there's some dumb things that were in LA's favor in that game, like that one taunting penalty by the
Oh
the
my
Seahawks.
God, yeah.
That it was going to be, they were about ready to punt, and then all of a sudden, one
Yep.
play later, touchdown.
It was
So,
4th and 12. Yeah, 4th and 12. They get this. No, 3rd and 12. They get the stop. Seattle's defensive back who made the play decides to run along the sideline and taunt the Rams. The referee warns them. Guy doesn't stop. There goes the flag. First down. Next play, Stafford throws a touchdown pass against that same cornerback. That would have been if Seattle doesn't win that game. They would have ran him out of Seattle on a rail.
I actually what it made me think of that's typical SOL Lions.
Yeah.
That's something they would have done in the playoffs and
Yep.
lost.
Yep.
I'll throw out something to you guys I've been thinking about. What if this kind of renaissance of the Lions in the last few seasons, what if it's a mirage? And they peaked at the NFC Championship loss a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Dan
And
Campbell said it's possible.
Sure.
And they're back to SOL.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
We're back to SOL. It's literally the kind of they've always been SOL. They were SOL in those years. That was just as good as it's possibly going to get.
Well, that's why this offseason
offensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
This is some weird shit that they're like you guys were talking about with Kafka and with Petzing or whatever his name is, and it does. I think Greg's right. It's it doesn't make any sense. Why would you hire both of those guys? It makes no sense.
Well, that's why this offseason is so important because you do kind of feel like you're on the precipice of, there's a fork in the road. Are we going to go down the SOL road option, or are we going to go down the other option, which was they took a step back? I personally don't think it's an SOL thing. I really don't. I don't get that feeling, but I do think that with the division being such as it is, we've got 4 teams that all finished above 500 in the division this year. That doesn't happen very often. So, say what you will about Minnesota, say what you will about Chicago, but the Bears are going to have a number one first place schedule next year. We don't know. Next year will be, to me, more telling about how good they are than it was this year. But still, it's a tough. That division's tough. It really is. I mean, it really is. Minnesota is probably still maybe the weak link, but because of the quarterback situation. But I still think that any one of those teams, I hate to see any of them on the schedule on the upcoming week, because it's never a walk in the park when you play the NFC North. Never.
Well, and you mentioned Minnesota. They may be the weak link, but they beat Detroit twice this year.
Yep.
Right. And Green Bay beat Detroit twice this year. The only one Detroit beat was Chicago.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So, and that might be because that was one of them was really early in the season, and Chicago didn't have its shit together, which is possible.
Right,
They had a new
right.
coach and stuff.
Right.
And then the other one was the last game of the season, which they probably half-assed didn't care. So,
Right.
so who knows? Detroit does play in a tough division, and they can't let anything sort of, I would say, they can't get sloppy anywhere. They can't take anything for granted with any
Right.
of those teams. And you think they're not? All the three of those teams are not going to try and get better too next year.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's they're going to have a tough time even with a fourth place schedule. So I'm not sure they're out of SOL yet. We'll see. I think the next year or so are going to tell you whether it's just.
We'll see. Yeah.
That was like a honeymoon period, but that was kind of like a momentary mirage. So
Yeah, it's we're at the point now with the Lions. Yeah, it's like they really do. I don't buy one bit to anybody being in the hot seat at all. But it would even if it would have to be a cataclysmic season next year to even start talking about that kind of stuff. I mean, look how long guys like John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin lasted.
Right.
But then again, those guys both had a Super Bowl. But I mean, Mike Tomlin became the master of finishing 9-8, 10-7, making the wild card and getting knocked out.
Right.
And it's like.
Right.
He makes the playoffs. You can't fire him, but that's all he does. So, but I don't know. The NFL is just this funny animal right now. But who would have saw a Super Bowl coming with Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback of the favorite?
Right.
And that kind of just drives home the point that you don't need Patrick Mahomes type to win the goddamn Super Bowl or even make it. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a worse season than Jared Goff, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
So, but I'm rooting for the guy because he went through hell and back, and again, it's funny to see Vikings who made a decision to go with J.D. McCarthy, who was probably the rawest of the quarterbacks taken in the first round that year.
Right.
But he went and decided to roll the dice on him, and he can't even stay on the field. He's constantly getting hurt. And here you are, Darnold, who has another 14-win regular season and now has his team in the Super Bowl. So I'm rooting for the kid. And plus, I can't stand Boston anyway. So fuck them assholes, as they say. So, but anyway, it's about anything else you want to cover tonight? Or you think about ready to wrap it up?
I'm okay to wrap if you guys are.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, because there has not really much change at the Red Wings. Tigers have not made any news at all. Other than Skubal picked up his Cy Young, this week, and other than that, there's been nothing going on, other than the arbitration battle, which hasn't even happened yet, So I think it's time to maybe call it a night. We'll have lots to talk about on the next episode. With the NBA trade deadline coming along, we'll be getting really close to the NCAA tournament. There's big games this week. Michigan State are playing, and they're both very, very good. It should be high seeds in the NCAA tournament. That would be coming up. Hell, we're getting close to March Madness. It's a month away. So, but anyway, I think we should wrap it up. So that means it's time for our Jerk of the Week. As always, Dick, you get to lead off. Who is your Jerk of the Week?
So I was originally going to go with some little tweet that went out that stated the obvious and nothing at the same time. That was it was related to Jaden Ivey. It's like, they're willing to trade Jaden Ivey if they get the right deal. It's like, well, no fucking shit.
Yeah.
That goes for every player. But today it was announced that Sanders, the legendary quarterback of the Cleveland Clowns, was elected to the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
And which just like, I don't know how many places I checked to see if this was real or one of those parody accounts. But apparently it's real. And so my jerk of the week is not Sanders. Like, he is who he is, whatever. He didn't do anything in particular. My jerk of the week is all of these all-star games and all of the sports. I don't know what it is, but none of them are worth watching.
Yeah.
None. I don't. You can name the sport. None of them. The basketball one has been a disaster. People are disappointed with that. Can't watch that. Baseball All-Star Game, hockey. Hockey might have a little bit of edge on all of these, but that's like being the king of the dumb. And then the football one is a joke. I wish they would have a paper football tournament. Honestly, do something. But who the hell is going to watch it? It's just I think the time for that has passed. The players don't really play in that game, and why would they? They have way too much money at stake in their contracts. Why would they get hurt playing that game? Nobody would. It'd be stupid. And so, and those little skills competitions, who cares? Those things couldn't stand on their own. They have to be part of an all-star game. I think they just shut it down and give these guys like a 1 week rest in the middle of this long season. Let them lick their wounds and get back and be done with the all-star games. So that's my jerk of the week.
Yeah, I thought I had to check it wasn't a parody account when you sent us that text today about Sanders.
Well,
no, that can't be true.
I was checking it too for that same reason before I sent it to you guys. And I'm like, how many people had to say no before they picked him?
Right.
So,
pretty much every other quarterback in the AFC apparently. So Jesus Christ.
That's right.
So anyway, with that, speaking of Jesus Christ, Greg Eno, who is your who's your jerk of the week, Greg?
Wow, that's something.
No pressure after that.
Yes.
Yeah. I was also going to go with the Sugar Sanders things. That's just so beyond the pale. But this didn't make a lot of news. But I'm all for journalists asking the tough questions and so forth. But as you both know, there's also a lot of clowns out there who don't ask tough questions. They just ask stupid questions. And I'm not, believe me, and I'm not a Sean McVay fan. I've never been a Sean McVay fan. I always think he's been overrated. But after the Rams lost that game to the Seahawks, which was tough. It was tough. You're losing anytime you lose a game like that, it's tough. And as you know, Matt Stafford is he could very well become the MVP of the league. There's no question about it, despite that loss.
Right.
And so after the game, tensions, emotions run high after a loss like that. And I give coaches all the credit in the world in all sports for standing up in front of the media when you've just had your heart ripped out. And it's tough. It really is. And so I'm going to give McVay a little bit of this is not about McVay. He's not the jerk of the week. I don't know what media person asked him this, but somebody asked McVay if he thought Stafford was going to be back next year.
Yeah.
And he's like, he said, yeah, I think this is McVay. Yeah, I mean, if he still wants to play, what the hell kind of a question is that? And he's right. You'd have to ask, and he says, then the follow-up was, well, you think he wants to play? And he said, well, you have to ask him.
Yep.
If he wants to, he's still playing at a pretty damn good clip. This is still McVay. I mean, he's the MVP of the league. And if he's not, and I got respect for everybody else, but this guy played at a level that was just different. And I just feel like there were so many other questions that could have been asked about the game. And I wasn't there. I don't know what already had been asked about the game, and I don't know what was asked about the game. Let's just put it that way. But I do know that that's not the time to ask the head coach if he thinks his quarterback's going to be back next year. And it just was a weird, first of all, who's going to have that answer? Who's going to have the answer to that question that soon after their season is over with? Or did he expect McVay to say, oh, guess what, guy? I forgot to tell you. Matt Stafford's not coming back next year. The next question? I mean, really? Some of these, I'm not simping for McVay here, but some of these questions that these people ask, when they've got so many more other opportunities to ask so much better questions, it's just, I don't know. I just feel like you wonder where some of these people's minds are at when they ask questions like that. I mean, who's going to have? What did the reporter expect McVay to say? That's the thing.
sounds like one of these. Somebody's grasping for some cheap gossip article to write, or
Yeah, and I wonder what their affiliation is. That doesn't sound like something a beat writer would ask.
Right.
I don't know. Rob Parker would ask that.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Or Carlos.
Yes.
For sure.
But yeah, that's a good one. It's I mean, there's a reason we have the pressers, and I'm glad they do. But yeah, some of these reporters really need to think about what the hell they're asking, and that's a good point.
Now, if he was going to ask McVay, are you coming back? Now,
that's a more legit question. You're right.
If McVay was in a contract situation where this was his last year, or he was whatever. He's probably still not going to get a good answer at that point because it's right after the game ended. But why are you asking the coach if his quarterback's coming back?
Yeah. Yeah, and McVay, and there is a history of McVay kind of being wishy-washy if he wanted to come back a few years ago. So at least there is something that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, Greg, we got to get you credentialed. Greg Eno of Substack and the Knee Jerks. Yeah. Are you retiring? Yeah, no. Okay. All right, my jerk of the week, I could go with a couple. They're kind of mixed together here because of what's been going on in Minnesota. Where we're seeing essentially law-abiding citizens get executed by ICE.
Right.
And the first one was Lane Kiffin. He is a terminally online Twitter troll who just also happens to be a very well-paid, well-known football coach. Apparently Friday night, he posted a photo of two caps that said, "Make Baton Rouge great" on Twitter, and then he tagged Trump in the tweet. Friday night. We all know what happened Saturday morning. So, obviously, Kiffin had to backpedal, delete the tweet, and kind of pretend like it never ever happened after seeing what happened, essentially the murder we all saw Saturday. And then also, this happened in Minnesota. The Vikings play-by-play guy, Paul Allen is his name. I guess he also has a daily radio show.
Yep, he does.
Yeah, in Minneapolis. And Friday afternoon, he said, "In conditions like this, do paid protesters get hazard pay? These are the things I've been thinking about." I can see he was blurting out, left Antifa bullshit.
Right.
And again, we all know what happened in Minneapolis Saturday morning with a man getting murdered by ICE.
Right.
So Allen today made a short appearance on air saying, I guess he also made a quote, "Everybody's catching strays." Yeah, another nice line.
Yeah.
So he showed up today. And a very short, that was actually broadcast because I made a comment on air Friday about protesters. It was insensitive and poorly timed, and I'm sorry, misguided. I need to be better. I wholeheartedly apologize, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to step away for a few days. But that's what, I don't know, guys. Why are you even bringing this shit up?
Right.
I mean, this is just Twitter troll type stuff. This is just trying to get people angry, or right. I gotta own the libs, or whatever. There is no reason for either of these guys to do or say the things they did, especially in the positions they're in. It'd be like Dan
Miller,
Dan Miller saying. Could you picture Dan Miller saying something like that, or Ernie Harwell or Ken Cal or whatever saying something that fucking stupid? Or especially for that matter,
especially about the city
in your own city, exactly. Or for what Kiffin did, could you picture Kyle Whittingham doing that?
Right.
No. So my jerk of the week are those two guys, and I might as well throw ICE in there and the Republicans and everything else who no longer apparently believe in the First or Second or the Fourth Amendments.
Right.
So that's my jerk of the week, and I guess that's enough. That's my politic. That's my politics corner for the day.
You can add Chipper Jones to that list too, because
what did he do?
Chipper put out a tweet said less talk, more handcuffs.
Oh shit!
He wants Walls arrested, and he wants Fry arrested, and he wants So Chipper's a MAGA guy now apparently.
Yeah, unfortunately, baseball seems to be full of also conservative types. But I guess you could also argue baseball seems to have the least educated guys as well. It's all guys who barely got through high school for the most part. So, don't get me going, guys. I think I spent too much time doom scrolling this past weekend. I guess that may be playing into it. But
that'll fix you, sure.
Yeah, but on for good news, apparently Dan Bovino got demoted tonight.
Greg Bovino.
Right, yeah, whatever the fuck that little Gestapo's name is.
Who's this?
Bovino, the guy who was running the border patrol in Minneapolis. I guess he was ordered out. He was ordered out tonight. Apparently he's been demoted. The guy who dresses up like a Gestapo and everything whenever he speaks, and he's about 5 foot tall.
Right.
So don't get me going. It's been a horrible weekend. Yeah. So I'm glad I had this time with you guys to take my mind off of what's been going on in the world lately. And that's everything. I can't wait to get out of town. We're going up north this weekend and go into our up north bubble. I'm so looking forward to it.
Good.
Yeah,
that'll be good.
Anyway, but. And Nick's got a Super Bowl to celebrate now, so.
Well, I got 2 weeks before it happens. So
you better party hardy.
My tradition has been not to watch the Super Bowl and to
I know.
Try and keep from finding out who won. This is one I'll actually watch.
Oh my goodness. So. All right, well, yeah. So if we're all watching, we can all tweet at Nick now and not spoil the game for him. So.
I'm going to enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. And I think we're all going to be rooting for the same team, which will be nice. So, all right, what's that? Let's kind of start working our way out the door. So, Greg, if you get out the thank yous and who we might have coming up and the social media and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, first, Siddy Hall. Thanks to Siddy Hall, another great NBA discussion. And I feel bad that we couldn't get the Ray Scott thing in. That's okay. We'll reschedule Ray. Maybe, frankly, it might have gotten a little crowded anyway with City. Maybe there would have been too much traffic between the two of them, but that's okay. We'll get Ray on. We'll make that happen. Follow me on X at Greg Eno. Please subscribe to gregeno.substack.com. I will be in your inbox every Monday. I would appreciate that. I want to thank you, gentlemen. I thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this nonsense every 2 weeks, and you, gentlemen, for making Monday night so gosh darn fun.
Yes, indeed, and of course, please, people, subscribe to Greg's Substack. It's free, and you get a great column. Sometimes two, depending on how ambitious Greg's feeling, and it's always interesting stuff. So please do. Nick, tell people where they can find you online.
Mine is really simple. It's on Twitter, and my handle is right below my name there. So it's at Nick Milanovich, and that's where I'll talk about sports. And go back and forth on Detroit sports there. So
yes,
just find me on Twitter.
All right, and as always, I want to thank you guys for making my Monday night a little more bearable. I very much enjoyed it. Again, looking forward to talking to Coach when we can get our technical issues sorted out. And Siddy's always fun, and we'll have him on when the playoffs roll around. So it's actually nice talking to Siddy when we have good stuff to talk about. Yes, he's very informative. Exactly. All right. We would appreciate if you would like, share, and subscribe to the Knee Jerks podcast of Eno, Nick, and Big Al. We can be found pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. But our primary places would be sites such as Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify, we're on Amazon Music, we're on Deezer, we're on Radio Public. Pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, just do a search for the Knee Jerks, Eno, Nick, and Big Al, some combination thereof, and then please subscribe to the show. Our webpage is thekneejerks.net. That'll take you to our show notes, all the links to the things we've discussed, all the social media. You can also download the MP3 of the show from there as well. And we do live stream video of every episode. You can find those on YouTube and Twitch. So I think that about covers it. So, like I said, it's funny. We're staying on our 2-week schedule right now. It's really going well. And I'm going to be home again, so we can continue chugging right along. We'll have lots to talk about our next episode with the trade deadline coming up. And hopefully we'll be able to touch on some Red Wings. And hell, guys, spring training sneaking up. It's It is. It really is. So that's about, what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Not even 4 weeks. Probably about 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
Pitchers and catches report.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to yelling at the Tigers front office more very, very soon. But until that time, I think it's time to get out of here. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. So until that time, this is Al Beaton saying good evening, good night, and aloha, along with Nick Milanovich.
Good night, guys.
And, of course, Jesus Christ himself, Greg Eno.
Ciao later, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.